Yeah, everybody, my name is MINOU, and today we are going to be talking about Darkness of Dragons, the finale for Wings of Fire, at least Arc 2 for now. So, a lot of people have mixed feelings about Darkness of Dragons. I'm not going to get into it much, but stuff goes down, and not everybody agrees on whether that was the best way to do it or not. And Darkness of Dragons, some people really hate it because it's where certain favorite characters got certain stuff happening to them, and it's also where it's the end of the series. It's a finale. Finales always have a lot of controversy about them, so I'm going to try and present my opinion on this book. And yeah, so in the first half, I will try and do a brief summary for those of you who haven't read it in a while, or for those of you who are deciding whether to read it or not. So I will basically be, with minimal spoilers, summarizing it, and I will be talking about what I feel about it in the most general way possible. And then in the second half, I will let you know when we really get into spoilers territory, and then I will be listing specific events that I thought were good or bad or whatever. Okay, so Darkness of Dragons is the finale of the second arc of Wings of Fire. It's like the Jade Mountain area thing. It doesn't really have a name, which is strange. So this one comes after Towns of Power, and so it's immediately after. There's no time skip or anything, and it's in Kibley's point of view. Kibley is my boy. I love Kibley so freaking much. Here's the cover in case you want to see what Kibley looks like. Don't mind me. There's this is from the library. There's a barcode on there. Don't mind that. Basically, Kibley's on his own for a little bit, along with Winter, and then later on they catch up with Turtle and everybody. Some challenges they face in this series are the return of Darkstalker. That's kind of been happening since Escaping Peril, but now they really have to get it done. Things are happening, and it really starts picking up its pace. With the whole Darkstalker subplot, we get to learn about Kibley's uncle, who apparently is evil, so there's stuff that goes down there. And there's Onyx, who challenges Queen Thorn for the crown. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this one, and it kind of feels like there's a bunch of plots shoved into one book, but in the end it comes together really nicely. And, I genuinely enjoyed it. If I have to give it a 1 out of 10 rating, I'd give it an 8.5, just because, you know, it wasn't spectacular. There were a few parts that I thought were kind of strange and not really perfect, and a few points that I disagree with, but being in Kibley's mind again for the first time since the first part of Moon Rising, yes, he's so fun to read. Like, in his point of view, it's just, his mind works in the strangest way, and Twee portrayed it perfectly, and oh my gosh, I love it. So I just really love being in Kibley's point of view, and also a lot of stuff happens, and it's a pretty creative. There are some pretty creative stuff going on in there, like some really creative solutions to the different problems that I just laid out for you. So that's something that I really like about it. So yeah, I'll give it an 8.5. It's definitely really, really good, but it has its flaws. It's not perfect, and it's not the best Rings of Fire book I've ever read, but I like it a lot. I do like it a lot, and I would totally read it a bajillion times again. This is already my third time reading this book. Oh my gosh. I think it's a pretty good starting point for the third arc. So, you definitely need to read this if you're going to understand the third arc. So don't skip it. But yeah, it's a good launching point for that. The epilogue of this book is a good launching point, and having all these separate things all tied up and not having to worry about it anymore is nice, because then you don't have to worry about those issues, I guess, later on. So, okay. All right, let me see. Is there anything else I want to mention? I like the characters in this one. I like the characters always in Wings of Fire. No matter what, the characters are great. The character dynamics are pretty great. And the scenery is great. The world building is great. Everything's great, pretty much. And so, yeah. I'm gonna jump into spoiler territory now. So basically, you have Kibley. Ostrich gets kidnapped, and then he has to go rescue Ostrich and face his dad for the first, not his dad, his uncle for the first time. Who's Kibley's dad? Where is he? Did what's her name? Oh my gosh. Did Cobra really love Kibli's dad? Why does she care at all about Kibli if she's supposed to be this cold-hearted monster? Why did she get into a relationship and have dragonets if she didn't want dragonets? Like, Cobra's relationships. I want to know more about it. I want to know more about her because she's a very interesting character just because of how just ruthless she is and cold-hearted. I want to know how she got that way. We need a Cobra winglet. I don't know if we already have one. I don't keep up very well with the winglets. I probably should. I like warriors novellas enough, so I should probably get into those winglets. I've heard good things about them. Anyhow, so Cobra is basically his mom. Really bad mom. Super bad mom. Bad siblings too. Just he has a bad family. That's just a fact. So his vulture is like this like gang lord thing. Like he's like this whole he has this whole group of crime guys, kind of like the outlaws, but just like way worse. Like they are murdering people, stealing from people, blowing things up. The whole shebang dang. That it's everything's happening in that group and it's all bad. They have like skull tattoos all over themselves to mark how many kills they got. It's weird. It's pretty gruesome. So Kibli has to go face his grandfather, which is his grandfather? Yeah, grandfather, not uncle. What the heck? Vulture is his grandfather. Oh, okay. I thought he was his uncle for a second. I was wrong. Anyhow, he has to face his grandfather, and his grandfather is probably like his biggest fear on the entire planet. So that's really interesting, that whole thing. I do think for him being his biggest fear on the entire planet, he handled it pretty well. You know, for Kibli, a lot of the times he's like freaking out about stuff like, oh my gosh, Moon, I have to say the right thing, and oh my gosh, he worries about stuff so much, and like, Vulture, I don't want to go see you, and he's worrying about stuff constantly. And when he actually does these things, when he flies down to Moon, he does it effortlessly. Like he does this thing where he figures out what song Moon is humming, and then he starts drumming along to Moon's music, and it's the smoothest thing I've ever seen. Even though he was like freaking out about it moments before, he was like panicking. And then he was just like fine. It was all fine. And then with Vulture, like mostly nothing happened. It was all good. Like he didn't really show that much fear when he was doing what he had to get done. He wasn't like freaking out and freezing like Turtle does. He's like the exact opposite of Turtle. Turtle, he worries a bunch and he like acts nervous and acts like he's worried and stuff. Maybe it's just because Kibli's really good at keeping his thoughts hidden, but at the same time it's kind of weird being in his mind, thinking about all this stuff that's going to happen and panicking, and then it's fine. And he does it perfectly. Like, he's super unconfident, but in his mind, but then he's not in real life. It's the strangest thing. Maybe that's just how Kibli works. Maybe that was on purpose, but something about it's kind of strange. I don't know if we got that when Moon was reading his mind. Maybe it was, because he was always keeping track of things and keeping track of threats. That might be just how he's trained. Like, in his mind, he's always keeping track of threats and things that can go wrong. So, yeah, maybe it makes sense, but I don't know. It feels weird to me. Now, basically, they come back from the desert. They realize that... No, they don't come back from the desert. But basically, Onyx is the heir to the throne. They learn that, and then Onyx comes in and challenges Queen Thorn. Kibli makes this huge sandstorm thing with Anemone's bracelets and stops the fight, and then at the same time, Onyx gets wounded, and so she cannot challenge for the throne at the moment, and so that whole thing is conveniently put off. Then they fly back to Jade Mountain. They catch up with the Nightwings eventually. For this whole time, Tsunami's stuck in a cave. Like, we heard about it like twice, about her situation, and we never know how she got out and if they found her and how that affected Tsunami. But yeah, basically Tsunami's in a cave, like, doing nothing and just like spitting and like clawing at walls and stuff. But they eventually find her and get her out somehow. I'm not sure how. It's not on screen, but I don't know. Anyhow, chase after the Nightwings, catch up to the Nightwings, save Turtle and Kinkajou and everybody, and then eventually a bunch of stuff happens. But basically, they take down Darkstalker with a strawberry. The biggest dragon ever to exist, the oldest dragon ever to exist, the most powerful dragon ever to exist, an immortal dragon, a dragon who is invulnerable to anything basically, except for his eyes. King managed to get his eyes, but basically nothing could hurt him, and they took him down with a strawberry. I don't think that's ridiculous as much as I think that's insanely epic and creative. Like, who would think a strawberry would take down your supervillain? I really like that personally. I know a lot of people think that he should have gotten like an actual death, but I think that having that strawberry there was probably the better way to go. And it was just a very, very unique takedown for a villain. You know, villains die all the time at the claws of the hero or at the sword. Like, the hero kills the supervillain all the time. And, you know, villains dying is generally how it goes. But this time, he's not dead, he's just another person. And I find that really interesting. One thing I wonder, though, is if Kinkachu remembered to make it so that all the spells were taken off of him, she must have. Because otherwise he'd still be immortal, which would be interesting. A lot of people think that Peacemaker will eventually figure out that he's Darkstalker. But I don't know, like, magic is magic, and I don't think anybody's going to be telling him that he was Darkstalker. They'll be mentioning Darkstalker. Darkstalker will be probably one of the biggest things for a long time. People will be talking about him for ages, and especially in the Night Kingdom. So it's not like, oh, they're talking about Darkstalker. I wonder if I was Darkstalker. It's more like, oh, Darkstalker, just like everyone else. I don't think there's any way for him to know, and Foeslayer isn't stupid enough to tell him that he was Darkstalker, so I think he's gonna be fine. And I think it's really interesting that he's like half Lanewing and everything. Love that. And that his name's Peacemaker instead of Darkstalker. I really love that. It sounds a bit like Pacemaker, but oh well. I still like it. I really like that whole takedown thing. The main complaint, though, that I have with Darkness of Dragons is that there were so many plot points shoved into one book. Like, this was for a long time until Dragon Slayer just came out, the biggest book ever. It had like almost 400 pages. Yep, almost 400 pages. And so, yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on in one book, which usually doesn't happen. So we had the whole thing with Vulture, the whole thing with Onyx, the whole thing with Darkstalker, the whole thing with Jade Mountain falling and the ice wings and the earrings and lots of things got into this book. Like, this was a lot of stuff in one book. And, you know, sometimes, like, I just feel like it's too much somehow. I feel like the events don't flow together as much as they usually do for Wings of Fire. And because of the way that Keebly acts, like how he freaks out about stuff and thinks so much about stuff and like fantasizes over stuff so much, and then when he actually does stuff, it's totally fine and normal and actually really good. Like, that makes me feel like the relationships are a little bit shallow. I really love his relationship with Winter in this one, though. That was awesome. Awesome. That was great. Of it, and I'd just be talking about, oh, I liked the time when Winter said okay. Like, so much stuff was good in here that talking about all the good things would take forever, so I'm just going to talk about the nitpicks. Just know that the good parts far outweigh any of my nitpicks. Like, this was a good book. One complaint I have is that, like, I I don't like the way Anemone acted, I think, no, Anemone was fine. Oh, and then you also had this subplot where Chameleon was here, and you had to steal all of his charms from him so that he couldn't do any other harm because they already stole his talisman from him. But now they had to steal his little earrings and stuff that had all of his shapeshifts because he turned into a Mudwing and did a bunch of bad things, I guess, with the help of Vulture. He didn't do bad things personally, but he basically supported like murdering an entire race of dragon, aka the Mudwing, uh, by using his shape shifting tools, and so they took it away from him. He's still alive though, and he's still very much Chameleon. So I wonder what's going to happen with him. I wonder if he's going to go back to the rainforest, or if he's going to try and find his way somewhere else in Pyra. If he can even do that, like as a Rainwing, successfully, especially one that can't change color. Like, I wonder what he's gonna do, and I wonder if he's gonna come back again, because I do really like Chameleon as a villain. He's less evil, he doesn't have a bad heart necessarily. He's not doing things for the sake of power or being evil. He's mostly just doing it because he can, it's easy, and he can have some treasure and sparkles. So it's really interesting to see him, especially because, you know, most generic dragons, like most dragons that you would see on a day-to-day basis, would, like, they are kind of like treasure hoarders. So having him motivated by treasure and being, like, absolutely covered in all these different jewels and stuff as Bog, that's really interesting. And I want to know what he does, because what can he do now? If he joins the rainforest again, I want to hear a lot about this. I really like Wings of Fire and how they don't always have to kill the villain, because Darkstalker, you have Chameleon, you have Blaze. She's not really, I guess she's a villain to a degree. You have many, 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 many villains that are still alive and still pose a small threat potentially, but generally are just neutralized and rejoin society. I think that's a much better way to take care of villains than killing them. Because, like, if you just kill them, then aren't you as bad as they are? I mean, maybe not, but if you're able to, like, put them back into society safely or somehow, like Onyx, she wasn't dead either. She was just wounded. So I like how not every villain has to die, and how they might play a part in the future, whether they're villains again or if they're genuinely good. Like Blaze, she pops up, her name pops up every once in a while. Like, she still exists and she's still doing stuff and she's just not evil. So I really like that, because warriors often just kills their villain. One Eye, dead. Slash, probably dead. I don't exactly remember. You know, Tiger Star, dead. Scourge, dead. Blackstar, not Blackstar. Blacktail, Darktail. Darktail, dead. Darkstripe, dead. All the villains. Mabel Shade is dead. Like, I can list every single villain. Thistleclaw, dead. They're all dead. And Hawkfrost is dead. None of them got to be somehow reincorporated into society, except for Longtail, but he was never really a villain. He was just like an antagonist. He wasn't genuinely evil. He was just kind of a jerk. So generally you don't get that in Warriors. So it's interesting, you know, I like reading Warriors and Wings of Fire kind of at the same time. So you see the killing side of the villains, like where that kind of problem solving, and then you see this other problem solving where generally they do not die, and I kind of like that. It's not like Wings of Fire is afraid of killing off characters. They kill a lot of characters. Gil is dead. I can just talk for forever about all the people who died. Most of them are minor, to be honest with you, but then you have Blister and Blaze, and no, Blister and Burn, and you have Clay almost died. Yeah, mostly they don't kill that many main characters, actually, now that I think about it. But plenty of bad things happen to the characters pretty much constantly, so I think that counts. All the POV characters are still alive, and most of their friends are still alive. Yeah, that's true. Wings of Fire doesn't kill off very many characters, but nor does Warriors. Nor does Warriors. Gray Stripe's still alive. He's like 120. And he's about to go on this big journey in Gray Stripe's vow. So I think they're pretty equal, actually. Like, both of them, some characters die sometimes. For the most part, the protagonists live for like forever. Oof. Okay, so that's about all I have to say about Darkness of Dragons. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and a comment. It would help me out so much. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Alright, what time is it? What time is it? Showtime. Will you please move? Thank you.